Hi, Misha here, and I had a minute while waiting on someone, so I thought let's do an AK video. I like doing AK videos. Most of you like watching AK videos. One problem: there aren't many new AKs on the market, and the ones that are there are rather spendy. But there is one company, despite everything, that has introduced new products this year, has kept costs quite low, and while when I did my recommended AKs in 2025 video back in April, they were kind of a runner-up. For a lot of folks, they're probably the first choice with a few caveats. So let's talk about Zastava-USA's importer of Serbian-made Zastava guns and see what they've got going on as we get into the middle of September of this year, and see what improvements they've made, and I'll kind of give my personal thoughts and opinions and talk about which ones I may and may not own, including this one here, which you saw us test fire a while back, and it is a keeper. Let me explain why. But at first, as always, please do like, share, and subscribe. Very important right now, the way things are going. If you'd really like to help support us, check out Patreon, or you can do a super thanks here on YouTube. ZPAP M70 UF. Z is obviously just for Zastava. PAP basically is self-loading or semi-automatic rifle in Serbian. AP was their designator for automatic rifle, kind of like AK. M70 is the original year it was officially adopted. Yada yada. Not going to go into all that here, but this is kind of the final culmination. And of course, the underfolding stock, which Zastava, Yugoslavia, Serbia really stuck with the underfolders when a lot of other nations did not. They really liked them. This thing's in the way there. And yes, you did notice there's a sling on this one. Why is that? Well, truth is, for the fixed stock M70B1 in my collection, my good old-fashioned OPAP did the trick. It had the 1.5mm receiver, bulged, forged front trunnion. It had the medium-heavy wall 16 barrel, and it had 14mm threads, and as you've seen in the videos, I put the grenade sights on it. But the M70AB2, the underfolding version, is really the iconic one, and we saw parts kits coming in for years. In fact, really when the assault weapons bin came off in 04, beginning of 05, that was the first parts kit build that Century did. The thing is, back in the old OPAP days, they never offered a 1.5mm underfolder. They did do the NPAP underfolder, but it was a 1mm. Nothing wrong with that. I've said in many videos. But, you know, it's iconic. It's classic. So, happy with the OPAP for my fixed stalker, but when this underfolder came out, I was curious because I didn't really have a Yugoslavian-style underfolder in the old collection at the time. This, of course, fires 7.62 by 39. It does have a standard mag well. They do ship with polymer P-mags, but steel mags, especially the Yugos with the last round hold open follower, will fit no problem. In fact, I have not run into issues with the way the Zastava-USA converts the mag well in these. They seem to do a very good job. Factory underfolding stock, as you see, and this has all the same features, including a cold hammer forged barrel as the original OPAP, but with the ZPAPs, a couple years back, they started offering them chrome lined. Now, as I'm sure you know, the original Yugoslavian and even a lot of the Serbian production guns in 7.6239 were not chrome lined in military service. This is something they actually started doing for the U.S. market. Why didn't they chrome? The rumors about them not having chromium deposits are absolutely not true. They actually exported some chromium. No one knows for sure, but best speculation is they were using brass-cased ammo and they were caring about accuracy, so not having steel case. It was just a decision they made. Now, it doesn't have the grenade sights. That's okay. Later, M70 underfolders often didn't. And it does have this dingus here. For the first time, we have a bayonet lug. It also does come with the little retainer. At least mine did. And a sugar scoop brake. Also has kind of the space where the night sight could go, but it doesn't come with one. Standard rear sight. But yeah, they started offering with bayonet lugs for, you guessed it, pretty standard AK pattern, like 6x3, 6x4, or transitional bayos. Goes on, a little tight fit. Also, this is why you should never call me an expert. I forgot. I just pointed it out. I had the little retainer clip on for the cleaning rod, and because it hangs down, you can't, at least this bayonet won't go on. It didn't quite clear it. Typically those are used more for the machine guns, but we were shooting and I just didn't want the cleaning rod shooting out. So yeah, bayonet lug. Is it useful? No. But you know what? For 10 years, the Clintons told us we could not have bayonet lugs. So by God, any chance I get to have one on a gun, I do. In fact, I even welded one on a Sega 12, one of the Trimix ones, back in the day. So, I really like this. And some people give it grief for this scope mount, the angled up one, so that the underfolding stock will, well, underfold. But it's an honest solution to a problem. And for years, people building parts kits, this was a highly desirable part component. It goes to show you. We'll look at another one later in this video that's highly desirable that's coming in with these. I like the package. It's kind of a modernized M70. Even the kind of battlefield worn handguards are cool. Notice the 3 vents because Yugos have longer handguards. And that was one reason this was the runner-up in my earlier video. Yeah, the parts. But we'll get there later. I think it's time to kind of move on from this feller. Let's look at his little brother, the ZPAP M92. And this is a current version. I do have one of these. I've had one for a long time, but it's the older style, and I put a underfolding stock because this has basically a blank rear trunnion, and so you can do that. Now, of course, the newer ones, and they have done for years, come with a bolt-on pick rail on the back. And Zastava has offered a underfolding stock adapter that is a really good and simple, easy way to do it. Aesthetically, it works pretty well. I'd rate it like 80% there. It's still a little funky looking, but what have you. This has the same hinge top cover these have always had. Kind of taken from the AKSU, the crank inspiration. Unlike on a crank, it's not spring-loaded. In fact, an M92 parts kit build was the very first crank style gun I ever owned. Whereas, of course, your regular cranks are in, trying to get my cover down. Like most things, AK just needed a little elbow grease. They'll give you a workout. Anyway, it was the first one I owned. It was a parts kit build done down by Military Gun Supply in Texas eons ago. And the first true 100% Zastava import I saw was the M92 PV. AEE had imported some very sporterized PAPs earlier, but when these came out, it was great. You could get the guns for less than what a kit build would cost. And even today, the pistols are among the cheaper ones. You get a 10-inch barrel, you get the conical booster, which is on unique 26 mil threads. You even get the flip-up low light sight. Also has extended handguards. They're still shorter than the M70, but still longer than a crank. Takes standard mags. This one again is in 7.62. There's also a 5.56 version known as the M85, and they make even a carbine variant from the factory. Cool. It has the same kind of matte blued finish as the rifle and polished bolt group. That's all kind of original, but the updated versions for the ZPAP include this short pick rail on top here of the cover, and it is bolted on, so that's pretty good. And we went from a 1.0 millimeter receiver and standard trunnion on the original M92 to a 1.5 with the bulge trunnion on the ZPAP M92. This is actually kind of carried over from the M85 because of the extra velocity power of 5.56. The M85 always had the heavier receiver and trunnion as far as I know, but the M92, because of the lower oomph of 76239, usually wasn't really felt necessary. But because the U.S. market likes it and kind of commonality of parts, why not? And speaking of commonality, just like with the rifle, this always had a 10-inch cold hammer forged barrel, but now it is also chrome lined. Again, the militaries didn't have that, but, you know, why not? Also note the manual holdback notch in the safety selector. Some military guns had it, some didn't. It kind of comes and goes. Yeah. No, I really do like the M92, and they're very reliable. And since they are pistols, they're 100% a Zastava, including this cool, unique Zastava grip. Well, we've talked 5.56, so let's go into the ZPAP M90 here. Rifle version in the NATO cartridge, 5.56 by 45, 223 Remington. Pretty well standard controls, standard stock. We did review one of these early when they first came out, but it was the Zukov furniture version. This is obviously a much more traditional wood version, including the wood grip, wood stock. Note that there's no tang on top or bottom. Yeah, that's the deal with Yugo, Serbian, Zastava patterns. They're great, but they take their own parts. Handguards, buttstocks, a lot of the internals, because Zastava never had a license to make the Kalashnikov. They reverse engineered it, modified it to their heart's content. It's good, but it's its own thing. Now, that used to be a problem years ago when not many of these were on the market. Nowadays, though, since Zastava, even century before them, made the PAP and ZAP so popular, most of your aftermarket makers make this stuff, but it is a consideration. Thank goodness they do take standard mags. Well, the 7.6239 versions do. This one, well, it kind of takes a proprietary mag, sort of. Double stack mag well, standard there. And here's our mag. It's not a bad mag. It is reinforced polymer. It feels good. It feels quality. In fact, modern Serbian armed forces use this style of mag. But they're not always available. That's kind of always been the Achilles heel of all your 5.56 AKs, frankly. When we reviewed the earlier one, we did find that the Arsenal smoke mags would fit and function, but I wasn't sure. You know, this is one made a few years later, but yeah, seems fine. Of course, those are pretty spendy, and these are even spendier today. The Arsenal black waffle mags, and it fits a little bit different, but yeah, seems to be fine too. And those are options in the proper caliber. But something we did not try out the first time, one of these, an East German Wager mag, kind of same as the Romanian. And that's because the M90s, when they originally came out, they had steel mags. So I was curious if this would fit. And it doesn't. Well, it goes in, but it doesn't lock. I'm pushing it in, it just pops out. So you could probably make it work, but it honestly seems too small. And that is one of the issues. When companies went to doing a 5.56 AK, and to be fair, Yugoslavia was early. As early as 1985, they were showing off 5.56 lines. They never did a 5.45 line, and that actually explains what they did. They started off with the 7.6239 trunnion feed system, and they modified it for 5.56. Other nations like, Bulgaria, Poland, Russia, they actually went from their AK-74 lineup to a 5.56 modification, so a little bit different starting point, and it gets even more fun when you talk about Romanian stuff, but I digress. But just something to know, 223 mags aren't near as iffy as they once were, but not as cheap as 7.62 by 39. In past videos, I still ranked the Polish Beryl a little higher than this one. Not that this one is bad, far, far from it. I've always felt that the Beryl is just a little bit better, and I still do. But Beryls aren't available like they used to be, and these are. So with that said, you get a lot of rifle. Like I said, you get the heavier 1.5 receiver. You get a notch in your safety for what it's worth. It does have its own. Now, this version has, I think they call it more of the Russian color furniture, or at least the wood, wood grip. Pretty well standard here. Does have the extendo handguards. No cleaning rod under the barrel on this one, but there is, I believe, a sectional cleaning rod in the box. And that's because this doesn't have a 16 1/4 inch barrel. It's actually 18, just a smidgen longer. Now, to be fair, the barrel is as well. And it's also threaded 14 mil. Comes with a sugar scoop. No bayonet lug, sadly, so boo. But you do get an adjustable gas system. Essentially, there's 2 positions plus a full cutoff. Now, full disclosure, the way this is meant to work, you don't want to pry it up if you can help it. The better way is to actually take your gas tube off and then go in and adjust it from the inside. In an emergency, you can do it externally, but it's not really spring steel. I wouldn't do it. So cool that you can adjust your gas, even shut it off a little bit, but it does need a disassemble. But, you know, considering most AKs don't even have that option, pretty neato. Now, the M90 was actually their second attempt at a 5.56 rifle. There was an M80, and there was an underfolding version too. This evolved into the M21 that is in service today. And what's funny is, because this is made in, see that it has the bolt hole open, it made in the current era, even though it's an M90 mostly, it does have a few elements kind of taken from the M21. So it's an improved M90 pattern, and it does very well. By the way, it's a 1-in-7 twist, cold hammer forged chrome line, and the trigger is pretty solid on these too. No, I really like this gun, and I really do like the wood configuration more than the polymer, but that's, you know, your mileage may vary, and that's one good thing Zastava is doing now. Even though they don't have that many base rifles, they're offering a wide range of furniture, from different colored tactical polymers to different colored wood. Hey, variety is the spice of life. And with that, let's get to our 4th and final entry today. The biggest boy of the bunch, the ZPAP M70 one of the very first guns we reviewed in 2025. Zastava promised this would be out in 2024, and I waited all year. And to be fair, technically they weren't fibbing. It did come out the last week of 2024 when I was sick, but got one in and reviewed it, and I was expecting good things, and frankly, it blew me away. Now, that review rifle, I was really thinking to keep, but then a good customer really wanted one, and so even though he said, no, you keep it, I said, no, if you really want one, they were hard to get at the time, you can have mine, and since we did shoot it in a video, you can have it for basically below cost a little bit. So, you know, that's sometimes what you have to do in these things. So this is a different one. It does have the more reddish furniture. And of course, this is often called an RPK. Generally true, but if you want to get, well, actually about it, it's the light machine gun, semi-automatic version of. It's a little different than an RPK. So let me explain what I expected and what ended up impressing me. And I should just say, all 4 we've looked at today, in my experience, have been 100% reliable with a wide range of ammo. From this point rearwards, it's pretty much the same as an M70 fixed stock. Yeah, they put the slightly larger wood grip, and they do have kind of the semi-pistol grip stock on it with the rubber pad, but everything's pretty well the same, including the mag well and all that good stuff. The first difference is we do get a elevation and windage adjustable rear sight. Cool. And then we go to the handguards. They're shorter but fatter. Ironically, they're still a different length than an actual RPK. And of course, that's because the big star of this gun is the barrel itself. It's a heavy wall barrel. It has these vents, which are unique to the Yugoslavian Serbian pattern, and it doesn't have near as much of a taper on it as the Russian style RPK. And it's actually a little bit shorter. The Russian's about 23 inches-ish. This is about 21 and a half inches-ish. You know, 1.5 inches, 2 inches. You might say they don't matter. We all know secretly they do. So for the heavier barrel, we have a heavier gas block, all that. We do actually have a flip-up low-light paddle on the front sight. This does have the retainer, as I pointed out, for the cleaning rod and the muzzle brake. And it does have a bipod. That I expected. All those things I did. The blued finish, the high quality, the good heft and everything. But there were a couple of things I said in the review that really I wasn't expecting. The collar of this bipod here, you'll see, is serrated. There's a push button. This isn't just the M72 bipod. This is the M72 bipod typically used on the paratrooper model, but it's a quick detach. It clamps on. Remember how I said earlier about the side scope rail and the underfolder, how that was a hard part to get back in the old builder's day. This was an extremely hard part to get, the detaching bipod. That's cool. It'd be even cooler, frankly, if it were paired with an underfolding stock. An underfolding version of this would be just the cat's meow. Peanut degrees. That said, I don't hate this wood grip. Some, it bugs them. I actually think it feels very comfy. And this one has got a little more sanding and polish going on than our original review one. And kind of the same thing goes with this hump stock here. It's actually meant where you can put it on the bipod and put your hand back here and give it 2 points. Kind of like a club foot. Again, it has the rubber recoil pad. It also has a sling swivel here since it's got the scope rail. Here's the thing. People don't like it because it's not exactly correct in M72. The thing is, if you went on any message board and offered to trade one of these stocks, which are less common, for a standard M70 stock, which is exactly what the M72 had, there are many more M70. You can do a trade. So what I'm saying is this is a more valuable stock than just a bog M70 like we saw, say, on that M90 type. So there you go. That impressed me. I liked it. I mean, sometimes you just have to acquiesce to ergonomics, and I do find the stock and grip a little bit more ergonomic. But the reason I like the first one, it was just a smooth, even Steven shooter. Good machined trigger. It's military grade, and it too comes with the standard P mag, and of course it too again will accept, you know, pretty much all your military mags with the usual caveats that yeah. But yeah, this came out, and I think it's done pretty well this year, all things considered. And I'm glad, because there are very few RPK or AK LMG semi-automatic imports that have ever come into this country. The AES-10B is definitely the most famous. After that, you really have to approach things like the Vepr, especially the FIME RPK, and those were always expensive and hard to find and have become insane. That's really it. Otherwise, you just had kind of long-barreled AKMs. Look, with this style of gun and semi-automatic, I get it. It's longer, it's heavier, it's not really any more accurate. It has a certain something that either you get it, you appreciate it, or you don't see what all the fuss is about and it doesn't matter. So if you're that type, yeah, this won't appeal to you. This is a more niche item. But for those of us that these kind of guns, that RPKs just talk to us, or Fallows in the FAO world, this is it. I mean, this is a true import M72, and we really haven't seen these since the days of the old Mitchells back in the late 80s and very, very early 90s, and not many 7.62, 39 M72s came in back then anyway. Now, there were some 308s, and you might be saying, what about the ZPAP M77? Granted, that's the 7.62 NATO 308 version. It's kind of halfway between this gun here and a PSL. They're great, but I just don't need another 308, so while I've shot them, I don't need one. But there's nothing wrong with them. They're priced fair, too, kind of like a Galil Ace used to be in 308. There's also the M91, which I reviewed with Jay a long time ago, which is the 7.62 54R version, which is basically a PSL, but a lot more expensive. And when I had to make a decision which was a keeper, it was the PSL. And that's the one. I'll be honest. The M91 I had, I was a little underwhelmed. That's the only one out of this bunch. Of course, if you really want to spend money, there's always the M93. In conclusion, Zastava-USA and Zastava in Serbia are doing a great job of bringing over their product line. Tariffs have kind of made things a little exciting. And there are two areas I think they still need to do. One, people call for a milled receiver. If they still have the capacity to make milled receivers over there, which they may not now, I don't know, they need to do a milled receiver for the market. They should be able to do that. Two, give us a frickin' ZPAP M21 already, please. But in the meantime, yeah, I like the M70 UF. I was kind of needing a Zastava underfolder rifle, and that's why it's got a sling on it, bayonet lug. This gun is pretty much just good to go as it is, and I really do appreciate it. And if I didn't already have an older version that I put custom work into, I would definitely keep the M92, although I do kind of appreciate, if I'm being 100% honest, the lighter weight of the 1mm receiver version. But most people would rather have the heavier dutiness of the 1.5. And you can easily mount a brace or a stock if you want an SBR. Heck, you can even turn it into a carbine if you put on an extended muzzle brake and pin it on. So you got options, and it's a fun little gun. And one of the most reliable shorties that I can think of. M90, look, if money and mag compatibility weren't a thing, and if we didn't have the Barrel, I would definitely keep this. I do prefer it. No slide on them, but I do prefer this over the WBP and 5.56. Even though in the 7.62, I probably slightly prefer the WBP over the M70, but I digress. It's got a lot going for it. But again, it's just a little bit of a tease for an M21. I'm holding out for an M21 Zastava. Holding out. Come on, give it to me. That will be the keeper for me. But the M90, as far as just like shooting characteristics, it's all that in a bag of potato chips. And one that I actually did plan on keeping until someone needed it more than I did, the ZPAP M72. Really like it. No complaints. Although I am at the same time holding out, maybe they'll do an underfolder. That would be a must buy. But even the fixed stalker, certainly practical sense, it makes a lot more. But yeah, I love RPKs. I love light machine gun semi-automatics. It's just pretty much right up my alley. And it's got a long pedigree. And I just like that Zastava delivered on what they said they were going to. Take notes, Daewoo. But yeah, like I said, was just waiting on someone to show up and had a little time. Haven't done an AK video in a minute. Got a lot of things in the works, but there's been a lot of shipping delays and stuff, so yeah, how it goes. That's why I ended up doing the revolver videos. But I appreciate everyone hanging out. Let me know what you think of Zastava as we kind of round out 2025. Do you think they've shot ahead of WBP? Maybe you're old school and are still supporting Arsenal. I know we all kind of miss Izhmash, Saiga, Molat, Vepr, but, you know, got to get over it. And whatever happened to the Huger in the Wasser series, aside from Snatch, if you know, you know. Yeah, they're around, but they just have kind of, I don't know, you know what I mean? Just kind of let it slide. So I really do think that in practical terms on the market today, heck, even Palmetto State seems to have stepped back a little bit. So when I get calls from distributors, it's either, you know, WBPs to a lesser extent, but Zastavas are becoming the most common. And you know what? Good on them. I like the company. From what I hear, I've never had to use it, but their customer support's pretty good. They seem to be doing it right. I hope they continue. I hope they don't let things slide. It's happened before. But then again, we've also had companies that have just continued to do great year after year. So best wishes to them. If you own a Zastava, especially one of the current ZPAPs, comment below. And also, yeah, feel free to rank these. Which ones do you kind of like or don't like? Again, if you'd like to help support us so when we get back out shooting, check out the link to Patreon. Otherwise, you can do a super thanks on here. But if not, yeah, liking, sharing, and subscribing, that's all great too. If you can't tell, it's a little warm outside, so I'm going to head inside. This is Misha. Peanut and I will catch you very soon next time.